Ako se slažete da počnemo.
So if you agree, we may start.
Dame I gospodo,
Ladies and gentlemen,
predstavnici medija
esteemed members of the press
I kolege
and fellow
ekonomisti.
economists,
Dobrodošli na prvu
I
prezentaciju
would like to welcome
godišnjeg
you all
izveštaja o
to the first
finansijskoj
presentation of the annual
stabilnosti
financial
sistema
stability
za
report.
2014. godinu. Na samom
At the very
početku
beginning,
želim da
allow me to
izrazim
say how
zadovoljstvo
pleased I am
što ću biti
to
deo
be a member
tima
of the
koji
team
će vam
that will
po prvi
give an
put
official
otkad
presentation
postoji
of the key
ova
recommendations
institucija
from this report,
zvanično
the first
predstaviti
ever
ključne
such account
poruke
by
iz
our
ovog
institution.
izveštaja. Pored već
In addition to the
prepoznatljivog
already
I
familiar
uobičajenog
inflation
izveštaja
report,
o inflaciji,
we now present
ovo
this
je
report
novi kanal
as a new channel of
komunikacije
communication
Narodne
of the
banke
National Bank of
Srbije s
Serbia with the
javnošću
public
I
and
učesnicima
participants
na
in the global
svetskom
financial
finansijskom
market.
tržištu. Posebna mi je
It is my privilege
privilegija
to
što
share with
mogu
you
sa vama da
the
podelim
impression
utisak
that
da
our report
naš izveštaj
compares
po
to the
kvalitetu,
reports of
a vi
central
ćete se
banks
u to
of
uveriti,
developed
ne
economies.
zaostaje za izveštajima velikih I značajnih centralnih
And this is something that you will
banaka
see for yourselves.
koje predstavljaju jednako velike I značajne I razvijene zemlje. I to nije naša
And this is
subjektivna
not our
ocena,
subjective impression,
već
but
sud
the
onih
judgment
koji
of
ovaj
those who have been
izveštaj
carefully reading
pažljivo čitaju
every issue
gotovo
of this
već
report
5
for the
godina.
last 5 years.
Kao što ćete čuti od mojih kolega,
As my colleagues
u
will
izveštaju
inform you
su
today,
istaknuti
the
ključni
report
rizici
highlights key
po naš
risks to our
finansijski
financial
sistem
system
koji
stemming
potiču
from the
iz
domestic
domaćeg
environment.
okruženja.
At the
Izloženi
same
smo I
time,
rizicima iz
we are
međunarodnog
exposed to
okruženja,
risks coming from the
njih
international
pažljivo
environment,
pratimo
which are
I
carefully
analiziramo.
monitored and analyzed.
Razmere
The extent of
posledica
consequences
ovih rizika
imposed
po
on our
naš
system
sistem
by these risks
zavisit
will
će
largely
u
depend on
značajnoj
our
meri
ability to
od naše
respond with
sposobnosti
well-timed
kako
and carefully
reagovati
calibrated measures.
pravilno odmerenim I pravovremenim merama. Do sada
I am
smo u
pleased to
tome
say
I
that so
uspevali.
far we have been successful in
U
doing so.
izveštaju takođe objavljujemo
The
I
report also
rezultate
presents the results of macroprudental stress
testova za
tests for the
bankarski
overall banking sector,
sistem,
which further
što je dodatna
confirms
potvrda
our
našeg
commitment to
opredeljenja da
transparent
budemo
reporting.
transparentni u izveštavanju, analiziramo I
The
tendencije
report
u
analyzes
bankarskom
trends in
I
the bank and
nebankarskom
non-bank
sektoru,
financial sectors,
kretanju u
as well as
domaćem I
trends in the
međunarodnom
domestic and
okruženju
international
I
environment, and in
kretanja
the most
u
important segments of
najvažnijim
the financial
segmentima
market.
finansijskog tržišta. Kroz posebne osvrte,
In an effort to
na
bring them
način koji je
closer to the
razumljiv
wider public,
širokoj javnosti,
global and
obrađuju
domestic
se
topical issues
najaktuelnije
in the
teme na
area of
svetskom
financial
I
stability
domaćem
are
nivou
covered in separate
iz
text
domena
boxes.
finansijske stabilnosti. Poslednja
The
kriza
latest
nas
financial
je
crisis
podsjetila
reminded
na
us of the
važnost
importance
stabilnosti
of financial
finansijskog
stability
sistema
and of the
I na
devastating
razorne
consequences of
posledice
financial
finansijske
instability. A
Svedoci ste
new
da se
global
na
financial
svetskom nivou
architecture
oblikuje
is being
nova
shaped
finansijska arhitektura
in order to prevent
kako bi se sprečio
future
nastanak
crises
krize
of
sličnih
similar scope.
razmera u budućnosti. Taj
This
proces
process
još nije
is not
završen.
yet complete.
Uloga
The central
centralne
bank's role
banke
in
u
maintaining
održanju
and
I
strengthening
jačanju
financial
finansijske
stability
stabilnosti
is very
jeste veoma
important.
važna.
But
Ali se
other
moraju
institutions and
uključiti
stakeholders
I
in the
druge
financial
institucije
market
I
must
akteri
also
na
get
finansijskom
involved.
tržištu. Da bismo bili
The key
delotvorni,
prerequisite for being
neprekidan
effective
razvoj
in this respect
analitičkih
is to
sposobnosti
ensure
za
ongoing
rano
development
otkrivanje
of
rizika po
analytical skills
stabilnost
for
finansijskih
early
sistema
detection
je
of risks to
uslov
financial
svih
system stability.
uslova. Finansijska tržišta su
Given the
povezana,
interconnectedness of
pa su
financial
rizici
markets, risks tend to
često
be
povezani, a
interconnected as
neretko
well,
I
or even
zajednički.
shared.
Što
The
bolje
better we
razumemo
understand the
rizik,
nature of the
bolje
risk,
ćemo
the
dozirati
better
mere
we
za
can
njegovo
prescribe the measures
ublažavanje.
to alleviate it.
Upravo je to
And this is
jedan od
exactly
ključnih
one of the key
zadataka
tasks
sektora
of
za
the Financial
finansijsku
Stability
stabilnost,
Department,
koji
which,
će,
similarly to
slično
the
novoj
newly emerging
finansijskoj
financial
arhitekturi,
architecture,
morati
will
stalno
have to
da se
constantly
razvija
develop under
I
the
to
watchful
pod
eye
budnim
of the
okom
public.
javnosti. Zbog toga će
Therefore,
vam danas,
besides
pored mene,
myself,
domaćini
your
biti
host today will
viceguverner
be
Dijana
Vice Governor Dijana
Dragutinović
Dragutinović
I
and
predstavnici
representatives of the
sektora za
Financial Stability
finansijsku
Department,
stabilnost, Ana Ivković I
Ms. Anna
naš Darko
Ivković and
Kovačević.
our colleague Darko
Čućete da
Kovačević.
pored izrade
As you
izveštaja o
will hear
stabilnosti
later on,
finansijskog
apart from
sistema,
producing the Financial
oni
Stability
sprovode i
Report, the Financial Stability
makroprudencijalne
Department
stres testove,
also conducts macroprudential stress
razvijaju
tests,
alate za
develops
praćenje
tools
rizika u
for monitoring
finansijskom
risks in the
sistemu
financial system,
i rade
and works
intenzivno na
intensively
uspostavljanju
on
okvira
setting
za
up a macroprudential policy framework.
Takođe, zadovoljstvo
Again,
mi je
it is
da
my pleasure to
konstatujem da
note that
nimalo ne
we are
zaostajemo u
not
ovom
lagging
pogledu za
behind
razvijenim
developed economies
zemljama,
in this
već
respect either,
idemo
but are keeping
ravnopravno
up with
korak sa
them.
njima. Želimo i
We
moramo da
want
razvijamo
and need to develop
makroprudencijalnu
macroprudential
politiku
policy
i
and
njene
its tools,
instrumente,
not
zbog
because
toga
other
što to
countries
rade i
are
drugi,
developing them
već
rapidly,
zbog toga što
but
smo
because we are
odgovorni i
responsible
svesni
and aware
da
that the
rizici koji
risks
su
heightened by
pojačani
the
nakon
crisis
krize
call for
zahtevaju
new,
nove,
more complex
kompleksnije mere.
measures.
Njihov
The
značaj je
importance of these measures has been
prepoznat i kao
recognized
takav
and
deo je
incorporated
i
within the
memoranduma o
Memorandum on
ekonomskoj i
Economic and
finansijskoj
Financial
politici
Policies that
koji smo
Serbia
zaključili
concluded
sa
with the
Međunarodnim
International
monetarnim fondom.
Monetary Fund.
I do sada smo
So
koristili
far,
brojne
we have
mere
applied
i
numerous
instrumente
measures
radi
and
očuvanja
instruments with a
stabilnosti
view to
finansijskog
preserving financial
sistema,
system stability,
iako oni nisu
though they have not
zvanično
been officially
nazivani
named macroprudential
makroprudencijalnim
policy tools.
politikama, instrumentima i merama. Dalji razvoj
Future
ove
development of
politike
this
biće
policy will be
transparentan,
transparent,
kao
just
što je
like
i
the
režim
introduction
targetiranja
and
inflacije
development
uveden
of the
i
inflation
razvijan
targeting
na
regime.
transparentan način. O rizicima
We
u
will speak
finansijskom
openly and frankly
sistemu
about the risks in
govorit
the
ćemo
financial
otvoreno,
system,
kao i o
as well as
merama
about
koje
the measures
planiramo
planned
da
to
uvedemo
mitigate
kako
these
bismo
risks.
ublažili te rizike.
We will also
Izveštavaćemo
inform the
javnost
public
i o
about the
merama
measures
koje
other
su
countries
radi
implement
očuvanja finansijske
or plan to
stabilnosti
introduce in a
koje
bid
su se
to
uvele
preserve financial
u drugim
stability.
zemljama ili planiraju da se uvedu. Upravo zbog
This is
toga
exactly why you,
vi,
esteemed
predstavnici
members of the
medija
press
i
and
kolege
fellow
ekonomisti,
economists,
ste
are
nam
so
izuzetno
important to
važni.
us.
Finansijska
Financial stability
stabilnost
is largely based on trust.
je u izuzetnoj meri zasnovana na poverenju. Svi smo
We have
mi
all been
svedoci
witnesses to how
da pogrešno
misinterpreted
interpretirana
information
informacija
can trigger a chain of
može da
adverse
pokrene
events
čitav
through the
niz negativnih
increasingly
događaja
prominent
koji
psychological channel.
kroz taj sve izraženiji psihološki kanal mogu da unište veliki trud i rad. Mi od vas ne tražimo da
Within
ulepšavate
this segment,
javnost, realnost,
your role is almost equally
ili da
important as
umanjujete
ours. We do not
ozbiljnost
ask that you embellish the
situacije,
reality or diminish the seriousness of
da
the situation,
kroz
but to be
profesionalno
professional
i
and
objektivno
objective in your
izveštavanje
reporting.
date svoj doprinos unapređivanju finansijske stabilnosti. Šta mi možemo da uradimo
What
za
we
vas,
can do for
to
you
je da kroz
is
ovakvu otvorenu komunikaciju
to
i
be
na ovaj
open
način
in our communication
doprinesemo
and thus
boljem
contribute
razumevanju,
to the betterment of
a time i
understanding
izveštavanju o
and therefore
kretanjima
of your
koje
reporting
imaju
on the trends
uticaja
that
na
have a bearing on the
finansijski
Serbian
sistem
financial
Republike Srbije.
system.
I na samom kraju,
Finally,
želim još jednom
once
da vam
again, I
poželim
would like to
dobrodošlicu
welcome
na
you to the
prezentaciji
presentation
godišnjeg
of our
izveštaja o
annual Financial
stabilnosti
Stability
finansijskog
Report for
sistema za
2014.
2014. Dozvolite mi
Allow me to end my
da svoje
introductory
obraćanje
speech with
završim
the
ključnom
key
porukom
message
iz
from the
ovog
report.
izveštaja. Naš finansijski sistem je stabilan
6 years
i
into the
nakon
crisis,
6
our
godina
financial
krize.
system continues to be stable.
Bankarski sektor je solventan,
The banking sector
likvidan,
remains solvent and
a
liquid,
rezultati
while the
stres
stress
testova
test
su
results
pokazali
confirm
njegovu
its
otpornost
resilience
i na
to
velike
large
šokove.
shocks.
Rizici u
There
sistemu
are
postoje,
risks in the system,
ali
but
i mere
also
koje
measures
mogu da ih
that can
ublaže.
mitigate them.
Uz pomoć
With the
međunarodnih
assistance of
finansijskih
international financial
organizacija,
institutions,
institucija, možda pre svih Međunarodnog monetarnog
notably
fonda,
assistance of the
ali
International
pre
Monetary
svega
Fund, but
sopstvenim
primarily by
snagama,
relying on our own
radit
strengths,
ćemo na razvoju
we will work
makroprudencijalne
on
politike
macroprudential
i
policy
unapređenju
development and improvement
funkcije
of the
finansijske
financial stability
stabilnosti.
function.
Znači, od danas pa nadalje,
So from
pored
now
zakonom
on, in
definisanog
addition to the
cilja
legally
o
mandated
očuvanju
objective to
stabilnosti
preserve
cena,
the stability of
imaćete
prices,
prilike
you
da
will have an
redovno
opportunity
pratite
to
i
regularly
kvartalne izveštaje o očuvanju finansijske
monitor the
stabilnosti
quarterly report
zemlje.
on financial
I ja vam
system
ovim
stability.
zahvaljujem na pažnji što
With
ste me
this,
saslušali
I will end
i
my
dajem reč
speech and thank you
viceguverneru
for your
Dijani
attention. I now give the floor
Dragutinović.
to Vice Governor Dijana Dragutinović.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, friends, and members of the press, I'm pleased to see you at the presentation of the annual Financial Stability Report. This is not the first annual Financial Stability Report, which you can see on the website of the National Bank of Serbia, but it is the first public presentation of the annual Financial Stability Report. Allow me to briefly touch on the past. The annual Financial Stability Report replaced in 2011 the Financial Stability Report that was published from 2005 to 2010. And this was not only about a change in the name of the report, but about an essential change in the content and focus of the publication. From looking back on the year behind to giving an assessment of financial stability over a one-year horizon, assessment of the stability of the system to possible shocks over a one-year horizon. The changes attributable to the amendments to the law of the National Bank of Serbia in 2010, which entrusted the National Bank of Serbia with an explicit mandate to contribute to maintaining and strengthening financial stability, macroprudential mandate. Let me remind you that financial stability has been our objective since 2003, but at that time, this function boiled down to solely on macroprudential regulation and supervision, which means focus on individual institutions. Throughout history, crises were turning points that changed the tasks and practice of central banks. The most recent crisis showed that macroprudential perspective is necessary to understand better instability and to find better ways to address it. This is a whole new area of economic policy, something that requires extreme analytical efforts and research orientation of the National Bank. The first message I wish to convey is that the mandate to contribute to the maintaining and strengthening financial stability of a system as a whole cannot be equated with guaranteeing the solvency of each financial institution. Banks are, since most banks in our country are privately owned, banks are similar to their private undertakings. Their success depends on their strategy and management. The management is appointed by owners. In a market economy, there will always be those who succeed and those who fail. Any entrepreneurial venture carries the risk of insolvency, and a business failure is a part of the normal functioning of a banking system. Hence, the strongest message is that the system as a whole can be stable despite the fact that some banks, some individual institutions are insolvent. On the other hand, you can have all institutions may be stable where the system may be unstable, which was shown by the latest crisis. The stability of the system requires several things. First of all, a clear ownership structure. Secondly, sufficient reserves of capital and liquidity. Speaking of capital reserves, I'm not speaking about only regulatory minimum. I'm talking about additional layers of capital, buffer capital. It is most important to protect the deponents, to have the lender of a last resort function, and an exit strategy for insolvent institutions. What we should expect from this report, all of us together? First of all, the report gives an overview of key risks, which may, not at this point, but within a one-year horizon, which may jeopardize the stability of the financial system. And also the assessment of the banking system's ability to absorb potential losses in case these risks materialize. And all of this together based on a true account of facts and analysis. This report ensures information to all participants in the financial market, which can help them to better manage their risks. The fact is that each financial institution manages its risk and return, but in such a way that it uses its own historical data. The National Bank of Serbia, by this report, provides additional data which stemmed from similar behavior of all financial institutions in the system, so that individual institutions can be aware of external effects of their own behavior. By this report, the National Bank of Serbia wants to inform the expert public and wider public about the actions that we intend to take or that we are taking, but not only actions of the National Bank of Serbia, and not only actions taken in our country alone. So all actions internationally and domestically taken in order to mitigate risk. And what we also hope as the National Bank of Serbia is to inspire a wider debate among experts on issues pertaining to financial stability, and at the same time, we want to encourage the National Bank itself to be as meticulous and as accurate as possible in producing its reports. All of this should help preserve confidence in financial institutions and financial stability. Several times you already heard macroprudential policy term. This is a policy which needs to alleviate systemic risks. I just want to dwell a bit on systemic risks that financial system is facing, both financial system of Serbia and financial systems worldwide. Generally, there are three types of systemic risks: those that are stemming from macroeconomic environment, from structural imbalances, those that are stemming from the function of the financial system itself, and lastly, those that are stemming from external environment. Talking about the macroeconomic risks stemming from economic environment and imbalances, we are talking about the long-term recession, which may affect the rise in NPLs to such a level which may jeopardize the stability of the financial system. Or if you allow over-indebtedness of household sector or corporate sector, this will diminish their loans, debt servicing capacity, which can also jeopardize stability of the system. The second source of risk stems from the functioning of the system. Individual institutions may be small, but very well interconnected, so that risk can very fast spread from one institution to another. They can also be exposed to the same clients, same sources of funding. And finally, we are witnesses to the fact that we are living in a global international system, very well integrated, so risks from one country can easily spill over to another. And large financial institutions frequently operate in several countries, so the insolvency of one institution may affect financial flows in each of the countries concerned. The key message of the Financial Stability Report is the assessment of to what extent our system is resilient to shocks and to losses. I will just speak about some methods that are used in the National Bank of Serbia in order to assess to what degree the system is stable. The first method is based on a large number of indicators. Some are called financial soundness indicators, some are more oriented to market perception. This is actually a command board before us. We are monitoring the trends, we have defined thresholds, and based on all this, we are establishing whether we are close to instability or not. The second group of methods are macroprudential stress testing. This is something that you heard recently, a very topical issue these days. This is a simulation assessing to what extent some large shocks, such as strong depreciation, strong changes in the financing conditions, can affect the stability of the system. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and friends, members of the press, let me leave you with the following points before I give the floor to the General Manager of the Financial Stability Department. First message is that what the Governor emphasized as well, the banking system in Serbia is stable. I would just like to add, it could be in a better shape than it is today, and so it will. The new banking regulation and institutional architecture in the European Union, which, to be precise, has not still been defined in all segments, is undoubtedly superior to the pre-crisis regime. The new regulation offers sufficient tools to regulators to ensure the preservation and maintenance of financial stability. Our goal is to make use of the new regulatory opportunities for strengthening and developing the system without losing the advantages which we have at this moment. These advantages are solid capital reserves and liquidity. That is why we have embedded Directive on Bank Recovery and Resolution into our regulations. It clearly defines new instruments and procedures that regulatory authorities will have at their disposal in dealing with distressed banks and problems of individual institutions. One of these new tools is called the bail-in tool, which actually allows the National Bank of Serbia, in certain circumstances, certain situations, to act preventively and to transform liabilities to capital, and in such a way to get higher value than bankruptcy without involving deposit insurance. And let me conclude. Crises were the turning points which reshaped the practice and tasks of the National Bank of Serbia. This crisis changed the mandate of the National Bank of Serbia from an institution managing the crisis to an institution which needs to prevent the occurrence of a new crisis and to contribute to this goal. Somebody said the more you talk, the people remember less. So I would like to finish here and to give floor to the General Manager of the Financial Stability Department. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Vice Governor. Good afternoon. My name is Ana Ivkovic, and I would like to greet you on behalf of the Financial Stability Department. I wish a warm welcome to members of the press. I'm often told that I approach the microphone too close. So I wish a warm welcome to members of the press, representatives of the academia, and most of all to our dear colleagues from the National Bank of Serbia. As the Governor, I have to thank my colleagues from the National Bank for attending this conference. In the next half an hour, I will try to present the key messages from our report. Since this is the first official presentation of the report, it will take somewhat longer, and I'm asking you to be patient. You have heard from the Governor that our report attracts large interest both from the domestic and from the international community. The report is singled out by the fact that at the very beginning we cite the key risks to the stability of the financial system stemming from the international and domestic environment. A separate part of the report, or to be more specific, its last quarter, is devoted to the financial stability function, key findings of macroprudential stress tests, and assessment of the financial soundness of the banking sector. The report, as the Governor emphasized, contains also text boxes which place special emphasis on events which marked 2014 and the first half of 2015 when it comes to financial stability and macroprudential policy. We analyzed risks in our previous issues of the financial stability report. These risks are also indicated in the inflation report and in our press releases. If you look at the reports of developing countries whose systems are similar to ours in terms of the level of euroization, the share of subsidiaries of foreign banks, and the share of non-residents in the portfolio of government securities, you will see that the risks are more or less the same that they're common to all countries. Further on, I will briefly describe the risks, and during the presentation, I will present in more detail each of the risks, but also the measures taken to moderate them. Given the high share of subsidiaries of foreign banks in the assets of the domestic banking sector, the most important risk is the risk of their deleveraging towards the domestic market. No less important is the possible spillover of the risks from the parent bank markets, such as Greece, and I have to emphasize this through the so-called psychological channel mentioned also by the governor. There is also the risk often discussed and written about by the media and by the members of the academia, and we analyzed this risk in the May inflation report. I am talking about uncertainties to emerging markets stemming from the announced rise in the Fed's interest rate. The opinions are mixed when it comes to the timing and the size of the increase, but there is almost consensus that this increase will take place by the end of this year. In addition to this, I will use this conference as an opportunity to once again highlight that after a period of exceptionally low interest rates of leading central banks, we will see a period of their rise. This will not necessarily happen in the short term, but in the medium term, it is bound to happen. For this reason, it is very important that all people taking long-term loans are aware of this. So I would like this to be our message when it comes to medium-term risks, especially for financial services consumers. Internal risk that we often underline is the high level of euroization of the domestic financial system. Around 70% of loans to the corporate and household sectors is in foreign currency. Around 77% of corporate and household deposits are also foreign currency denominated. It is clear that the currency structure of assets and liabilities of banks is well matched, and banks are not directly exposed to foreign exchange risk. Still, it is undisputable that a large number of clients is borrowing in foreign currency and they receive income in the domestic currency, which makes banks subject to the credit foreign exchange risk. In addition to this, we often highlight that a high level of euroization is weakening the transmission mechanism of monetary policy, given that a change in the key policy rate reflects on only 30% of the domestic credit market. For this reason, we will continue to implement consistently our dollarization strategy, notably its first pillar, and that is support to macroeconomic stability. The second risk often discussed during this year is the high level of non-performing loans and the relating and the consequent low credit activity. When we conducted the analysis of the causes that led to a rise in NPLs in the pre-crisis period, and you were able to hear from us that the level of NPLs was 11.3% before the crisis. One of the determinants of NPL growth was an inadequate valuation of real estate. This was not the key reason for NPL growth, but was one of the reasons behind their growth. To mitigate these risks, we asked banks to provide us with data on the valuation of commercial and residential real estate and on the loans secured by this type of collateral. Access to data on real estate valuation will be given to banks and authorized appraisers, and these very same data will be used by us for the purposes of macroprudential supervision and for enacting timely measures if need be. In the report, we also give an overview of developments in the international environment with a special focus on the financial sector. We have analyzed the effect of the winding down of the Fed's quantitative easing program, but also the monetary easing by the ECB, which worked on the markets in the opposite direction. We singled out developments in Russia, which led to a strong depreciation of the ruble, as well as measures taken by their central bank because of that in the second half of 2014. We described developments in the banking sector of Greece in late 2014 and early 2005. But as the report was adopted in the Executive Board meeting held on the 11th of June, the most recent developments in Greece are not covered by the report, and please bear this in mind. And generally, bear in mind the adoption date of this report, because some of the projections that you will hear will not be the same as the projections stated in this report and the projections stated in the inflation report, because this report has to be adopted until end June. A special text box covers the ECB's comprehensive assessment implemented in 2014 before the single supervisory mechanism became operational. In cooperation with national central banks, the ECB conducted a detailed asset quality review for around 130 banks, which account for 80% of the Euro area's banking sector, and the European Banking Authority implemented stress tests. Based on the results of this comprehensive assessment, so both the asset quality review and stress tests, with 25 banks were determined to have a capital shortfall. By applying a dynamic approach, that is by including the activities taken in 2014 by those banks, it was determined that these banks mostly performed the necessary recapitalizations and the resolution procedures of those banks is underway. For this reason, I would like to finish this segment devoted to international environment with a statement that the general assessment is that the implementation of a comprehensive assessment by the ECB was the right move, and that it contributed to the increase in the confidence in the euro area's banking system. This may be also confirmed by our governor. We attended a conference in June together, and one of the panels concluded that this comprehensive assessment implemented by the ECB was definitely the right move, and this is also confirmed by the report of the IMF. So this assessment was assessed as the right move and as a move that contributed to increased confidence in the euro area's banking system. In the introductory part, we highlighted the risk of a reduction in cross-border exposure of subsidiaries of European banking groups towards our market, and in the international environment, we singled out developments in Greece and Russia. For this reason, in the report, we highlighted particularly that in Serbia, there are 4 banks in majority Greek ownership, which account for around 14% of assets of the domestic banking sector, and 2 banks in majority Russian ownership, with a share of around 4% in total assets of the domestic banking sector. I have to highlight that on that occasion too, we highlighted that all banks operating in Serbia are independent legal entities. They have their paid-in share capital in Serbia. They operate in accordance with domestic regulations, which are, as you already know, more conservative than European regulations. Despite developments which spread from Greece to our market in late June and early July, mostly through the already mentioned psychological channel, these banks provided their services smoothly over the past several months, and there was no standstill. I will therefore use this opportunity to underline that though the risk of deleveraging persists, it is not prominent. In the sources of bank funding, the dominant part is that of domestic sources of funding, so the scope for bank deleveraging is not big. I will also remind you that in the last quarter of 2008, we were faced with a significant withdrawal of deposits. We responded with all the necessary measures, which led to an increase in household savings from 2009 to date by close to 4 billion euros, which means that household savings doubled. This gives me the right to repeat that the scope for bank deleveraging towards abroad is not big. The second risk we singled out is the expected rise in the Fed's interest rate, which for emerging markets could pose a risk in terms of their external borrowing. On the other hand, we think that this risk is significantly moderated by the program of the ECB's quantitative easing, and this is sort of a leitmotif in our report. What gives us reason for optimism is the fact that in the prior period, foreign investors responded to the very hints with regard to shifts in monetary policies implemented by leading central banks. And thus, the announcement of the completion and then the completion of the Fed's quantitative easing program reflected on the share of foreign investors in the auctions of Serbian government securities in the last quarter of 2014. And this is why in that period we intervened by selling foreign exchange in the foreign exchange market and by adjusting our reserve requirement policy. This helped maintain stability. Investors remained in our market, and the portfolio of dinar government securities increased by 24.5%. Last year, the dinar yield curve was lengthened to 10 years through the issue of the 10-year bond that foreign investors showed great interest in. This really tells us that they perceive our market as stable and as profitable. In 2015, the rise in the share of foreign investors in the portfolio of government securities continued, and interest rates for all maturities lowered significantly. I will give you an example that in 2014, interest rates on 2-year dinar securities fell by 1.1 percentage point, and in 2015 it fell by additional 1.8 percentage points to 7.2%. The drop in interest rates on dinar government securities was a result of demand if we look at developments at the level of the whole year, but also of the reduction of the key policy rate. In 2014, as you already know, the key policy rate was lowered by 100 basis points to 8%, and in 2015 it was lowered further to 6%, which is its lowest level since inflation targeting was introduced. The lowering of the key policy rate spilled over to interest rates in the interbank money market. Still, I have to stress that the risks from the international environment were the reason why the adjustments of the key policy rate were cautious. And we think that this cautiousness in monetary policy relaxation is to be credited for the fact that the risks which existed and which exist do not materialize. Given that our financial system is bank-centric and that more than 90% of the assets of the domestic financial system relates to banking sector, developments in the banking sector were devoted the greatest attention to in the report. Please don't take this amiss, but I will have to repeat some of the things that the Governor and Vice-Governor said. Our banking sector is highly capitalized with a capital adequacy ratio which is among the highest in the region, and you can see this on this chart. In the sources of funding, domestic sources of funding are dominated by deposits, notably those domestic. Capital accounts for around 21% of liabilities. This only confirms what I said earlier, that the risk of cross-border deleveraging is not high. I repeated this several times today because of the recent developments in Greece. At the same time, in banking sector assets are still dominated by loans. Due to low credit activity in 2014, the government implemented a subsidized loan program, and were it not for that program, credit activity would have been negative. Credits account for 64% of total banking sector assets, and the quality of those receivables, the quality of that portfolio determines the quality of total assets. If, judging by the share of non-performing loans in total non-performing loans, we may conclude that the quality of the credit portfolio must improve. The share of non-performing loans is high, and in 2014 it increased by 0.1 percentage points to 21.5%. Still, at that level, NPLs do not pose a threat to the stability of the financial system because they are fully provisioned for. However, we do not neglect the change that they are one of the important factors which acts as a constraint on credit activity and thus on overall economic activity. And this, because of this, we approach their reduction in a systemic way, and we try to draft and develop a national strategy for NPL resolution. In order to reduce the risk of new non-performing loans, though this risk cannot be eliminated, in this report we issued a new regulatory recommendation. It relates to the drafting of special repayment plans for long-term loans with variable interest rates and for long-term loans with a foreign currency clause. The main idea here is that after the lapse of period of several years, we should assume a rise in interest rate or higher depreciation of the dinar, and to present to the client that so-called stressed annuity plan. In that way, client is presented with a possible rise in annuities, monthly annuities, and a rise in total credit burden if market conditions suddenly deteriorated. I have to underscore that we defined this recommendation in collaboration with other central banks and through open exchange of experiences, and the recommendation relating to the assumed growth in interest rates after a certain period by at least 1 percentage point, even in conditions when a fall in interest rates is expected, has already been given by the Bank of England. And then Bank of England gave this recommendation last year. We will continue to monitor the good practices in this domain, and will strive to apply it. In the introductory part of the presentation, I mentioned that we are recognizable, among other things, by the results of macroprudential stress tests published in this report for the banking system as a whole. I have to underscore that we're talking about banking system as a whole. We are not talking about individual banks today, and I'm asking you to bear this in mind. Macroprudential stress tests are implemented in the National Bank of Serbia on a quarterly basis for the last 3 years. When it comes to the questions received through our press office from the representatives of the media, we observed that identifying stress tests with special diagnostic studies, they're regarded as the same, and for this reason we decided to explain stress tests to the broader public today in more detail. Stress tests are used as a supporting tool and exclusively for the purposes of timely indication and warning of potential consequences in the event of extremely negative developments. Worse results of stress tests do not necessarily mean that an individual bank, a group of banks, or the system as a whole are faced with problems. Because of their sensitivity, we stress that the stress scenarios are not realistic projections of macroeconomic and financial developments, but these are scenarios designed especially for these purposes in order to assess the resilience of the system to a significant deterioration in macroeconomic conditions. I have just cited the disclaimer from the website of the Bank of England, and almost the same disclaimer is posted on the website of all central banks implementing stress tests. This disclaimer is given in order to reduce the possibility of their misinterpretation. For the purposes of our stress tests of the solvency of banking system, we use three variables which have so far shown predictable, reliable strength. And these are the exchange rate, key policy rate, and seasonally adjusted real net wages. When defining scenarios, we take into account the features of the domestic banking system, and this being primarily high level of euroization. We use three scenarios: central projection, moderate, and worst-case scenario. For all three scenarios, we project a movement in NPLs for the period of 1 year, and based on that, we project a movement in the capital adequacy ratio. In this table, you can see that both the moderate and worst-case scenario imply extremely strong depreciation of the dinar over a 1-year period, to which the central bank would definitely respond by increasing its key policy rate. Once again, I repeat that these are scenarios only. These are not our projections. These are scenarios which did not materialize even at the height of the financial crisis. And I feel it incumbent on me to repeat this several times in order to avoid the possibility of misinterpretation. In the previous slide, you were able to see the strength of these scenarios, that is, the strength of the shocks they imply. In this slide, on the left chart, you can see the projected movement in the capital adequacy ratio for all three scenarios based on December data provided by banks. On this chart, you can clearly see that even in the worst-case scenario, which, I repeat, did not materialize during the financial crisis, capital adequacy ratio at system level falls to 14.8%, which means that it is above the regulatory minimum of 12%. This unambiguously shows that the system as a whole is extremely resilient to strong shocks from the environment, and that it is adequately capitalized. In addition to the stress tests of solvency, we implement the stress tests of liquidity. For these purposes, we also assume three scenarios: the déjà vu scenario, spillover risk, and the worst-case scenario. The déjà vu scenario assumes the withdrawal of 10% of total deposits. The scenario applies the deposit withdrawal structure from October 2008, when the crisis escalated. Risk spillover scenario implies withdrawal of 15% of total deposits, while worst-case scenario envisages a 2 times stronger shock than in October 2008, that is, withdrawal of 21% of total deposits. According to all three scenarios, including the worst-case scenario, the results are such that they indicate that the system as a whole, with a liquidity ratio of 1.29, would remain liquid. And you can see this on the right chart. This only confirms the statement that our financial system as a whole is highly liquid. So let me conclude. The risks in our financial system exist, and we do not try to hide this. The risks are present in all systems. It is up to us to apply risks in order to mitigate these risks. We did so in the prior period, which is why nowadays we have a financial system resilient to risks. As Governor and Vice Governor finished their speeches, I would like to finish this speech, to end this speech with a statement that the financial system is stable even 6 years after the crisis, and that it is highly liquid and highly capitalized. I will, in the end, I will invite you to read text boxes contained in the report and to pay special attention to the macroprudential framework, which is also published on our website. Before we open the discussion, I would kindly ask you to take into account that very soon, in the second half of August, we will have a presentation of the inflation report, and all the questions regarding macroeconomic projections, I would like to ask you to keep those questions for the presentation of the inflation report. And I would also kindly ask you to stick to the theme of this presentation, that is macroprudential policy, the system as a whole, rather than microprudential supervision and individual institutions. Thank you very much for your attention. The floor is yours.
Before we give you the floor, I would just like to emphasize once again something that may have not been emphasized sufficiently in our introductory speeches. Before we came in front of you with this annual financial stability report, and before we scheduled this press conference, the financial stability report was submitted to the National Assembly of the National Bank of Serbia, not only because this is our obligation, but also because, to the extent that we cherish our responsibility toward you as an expert public and to somebody who needs to educate wider public, I mean the media, we are before that responsible and accountable to the National Assembly. We submitted this report to the National Assembly, same as in the last 3 years. And we also do not wish, we do not want to neglect our parliament, so please keep this in mind, that they were the first on our list. And also bearing in mind our long experience, please remember Anna's and Diana's warning. All our stress scenarios are not projections. So please let us all try to correctly interpret information that has been presented. We remain open to clarify all ambiguities and all details you want us to clarify. You can ask us today and at any future time, but what's really important is that after this conference and this presentation, we should not have any warning titles, news titles like the interest rates on housing loans will rise, because we are all sharing the same destiny. We are all trying to achieve the same goal. Both us at this table and the people in the audience are girls from Financial Stability, and all of us, we are at the same task. So I would like us all to try to be responsible toward all the information and reports that was presented. We are at your service in this regard. So please do not hesitate whatever you would like to ask, and just try to adhere to Anna's instruction. Maria Savić-Stamenić, National Television RTS. In order to avoid this title, the interest rate loans and housing loans will rise. So we heard from you that interest rates will rise. So can you explain what will happen, whether the interest rate on housing loans will rise, stagnate, or fall down? Because our citizens are interested in this very much. Thank you very much to the governor, who assumed what will be the future titles, news titles. We were very careful to write that in the medium term, when I'm talking about medium term, this can be a 5-year or 10-year period. Within this term, you can expect interest rate rise, and after this period of low interest rate, you can expect some rise. So just please, we would like to inform all clients that will take new loans that if they are taking loans for a 30-year period, they will be exposed to interest rate. If they are taking foreign currency linked loans, they will be exposed to some foreign exchange risk. This is our obligation to emphasize. We are not saying this will surely happen. We We just want everybody to be cautious when making a decision on taking a loan. This is very important because we are now facing a situation where clients were poorly informed, and we just wish to avoid such situations in the future. And one of the recommendations which we singled out in our presentation, please bear in mind that these are just stress scenarios. Clients should be clearly informed of possible scenarios, of what could happen. You can send us also an email and ask it, but you can also go to the website of the Bank of England. They are giving recommendations regarding different stress scenarios just for the purpose of informing the clients of potential risks. So we're not saying that interest rates on loans will rise. Please do not bring this conclusion up to this conference. We're just asking for everybody to be cautious, and our experience has taught us that some people are taking loans too easily without being aware of their abilities, and then they get into difficulties in repayment of loans. So we just have to point to some expected trends, as you heard from members of the academia. This is nothing new. They already emphasized that after the policy of interest rates fall, some rise is expected. We're not talking about short-term loans, but primarily we're talking about housing loans and other long-term loans. Just be cautious. I hope that I was clear.
And I will add something. In Serbia, we expect interest rates to decline, especially for dinar loans, and we contribute to that with our moderate and well-calibrated interest rate policy in the segment where we can affect the 30% of flows which are not euro-denominated. And this is not an expectation of us as a central bank, but the expectation of the overall banking sector. And by maintaining macroeconomic stability, we will try to contribute to the lowering of interest rates, notably interest rates on dinar investments. I would also like to add something because you have asked such a good question. I would like us to talk about the transmission mechanism when interest rates of the ECB or the Fed are changed. In normal conditions, this should feed through relatively fast into other interest rates. But this happens in textbooks when money is a scarce resource. We are witnesses to quantitative easing, that is high liquidity. And in an environment of high liquidity, this channel is not that efficient, but the obligation of the National Bank of Serbia is to present the worst-case scenario so that the people would know the Swiss franc scenario will not happen, but a rise in interest rates may happen. But there are many determinants saying that this channel will not be that efficient. Filip Čukanović, B92, Mr. Baković, when we are talking about loans, what is happening with the Swiss franc index loans? We know how this problem was solved in Hungary and Croatia. How far did we get in this respect? I wouldn't like you to use the presence of the governor. You can freely ask us these questions. You were involved in this, and we gave very transparent press releases regarding the adoption of the decision which was adopted in February. This decision entered into force in March, and until April, banks were required to familiarize clients with Swiss franc index loans with available options. Clients, that is, citizens, have the possibility to decide on one of the four offered models. Some banks extended this deadline for September, until September. In October, we'll have the final results. So far, the last two models implying a lowering of the interest rate and a reduction in the monthly annuity by 20% over the next 3 years, and the repayment of the delayed part in a one-year period upon expiry of the original loan maturity. So these are the two models that attracted the most interest. This is a solution that is realistic and feasible, that implies the obligation for banks, multiple choice for borrowers, and with this we did what we thought will promote the interests of financial services consumers. From the aspect of financial stability, when we tried to assess the impact of the appreciation of the Swiss franc on the banking system as a whole, this did not show that this event would pose a significant threat to the stability of the financial system, but we responded in order to protect the interests of financial services consumers, and what we offered, we continue to regard it as realistic and feasible options. The clients may decide on one of the 4 offered models. We were a bit inclined towards conversion. It is a bit more costlier, but it implies exit from double risk, interest rate risk and FX risk, because we cannot affect the relationship between the Swiss franc and the euro. So it's up to clients to decide for themselves what is most acceptable for them at a given time. So the clients can analyze these options. Now the exchange rate of the Swiss franc against the euro is not as it was before. So citizens should decide on the option of conversion in order to exit the double risk. I have something to add. On the 12th of August is a preparatory meeting for the Executive Board, where we will present the results of the analysis of the turnout and of the response of citizens to the bank offers. And once we discuss this at the Executive Board meeting on the 14th and the 15th of August, we will present this report to the public. But for the time being, I can tell you something that we noted. Though these 4 models are based on the recommendations that we issued in June in 2013, not wishing to interfere in the market relations based on good information and a desire to solve a huge life-changing problem, I have to admit that the citizens have shown consistency in their decision to stay in the Swiss franc. Only a slight number of citizens opted for the conversion of their loans into euros, but this number of citizens is not as high as we expected it to be, which speaks about a psychological factor that people trust themselves the most. And the task of the central bank is to provide the largest number of relevant, reliable and timely information so that the citizens could decide under what terms and from what banks will they take a loan. So the government should not be a kind of a nanny that that leads any citizen who is well-informed and well-educated, nor does the central bank want to be an authority suggesting. What is up to us is to ensure the existence of more banks, to ensure their competition, to prevent any cartel arrangements and agreements, and it is up to us as the supervisor and regulator that the measures that are published and announced do not create any noise and that they are not presented to the citizens with any kind of noise. We want the citizens to select the best option for them. I don't want to be called out as the protector and guardian of banks. I think that I am the guardian of citizens. But this does not mean that we would change our level of interference in the purchase and sale. because in accordance with our legislative framework regarding financial stability, we just got involved in this problem to the extent possible and permitted without interfering in the market relations. I can say that we are very happy, all members of the Executive Board, that some banks did even more than they were required to, while some banks did not have any problems with Swiss franc index loans at all. They did not wait for this situation, for this problem to occur. They simply offered conversion to their clients before, and these clients accepted that, so there was no problem. So banks were required to submit to us reports about the response of their clients to the offers they presented to them.
Milica Rilek from the Radio Belgrade. As we heard, regulatory recommendations regarding simulation of annuity plans for interest rate risk and FX risk, this is part of the strategy for resolving the non-performing loans strategy. So I'm wondering when the overall national strategy for addressing the NPLs will be finished, and if some part will be finished before the talks with the IMF, can we hear something before that?
Yes.
First of all, I will respond to you. This risk recommendation is not a part of the strategy for resolving the NPL problem. We said that this recommendation can contribute apart from strategy recommendations. We will try also to do other measures and other actions in order to help. So not everything must be included in the strategy. This recommendation aims to reduce the risk of emergence of new NPLs, but is not included in the strategy. Regarding the strategy, as you already know, it has been prepared and all the deadlines have been adhered to because we're involved in international institutions, international financial institutions. It's a bilingual strategy, so the final bilingual fine-tuning is underway. Regarding the strategy text, because it involves a large number of institutions, it would not be fair to speak today about it without other participants that are also equally responsible and involved in strategy drafting and implementation. I just want you to know that we invested a lot of effort in this strategy and that it was a very thorough work with the assistance of the International Monetary Fund and other international institutions. I would also just like to add something. Not only because this conference is actually dedicated to the Financial Stability Report, but NPLs are part of financial stability picture, but I would just like to say something. The commitment that the National Bank of Serbia imposed on itself, but it was also entered into the Memorandum on Economic and Financial Policies with the arrangement, precautionary arrangement with the IMF. So this placed the focus on our work regarding the supervision and addressing the problem of NPLs and also the issue of asset quality in banks' business books. So there are two very important topics: special diagnostic studies, or as we call them, AQR tests, which the National Bank of Serbia works on every day and night, almost independently, together with auditors and business banks, and also a part of the NPL strategy where the National Bank of Serbia is only one of the participants. The manner in which the working group for strategy development functions and also the press releases must be harmonized. Development of the strategy within the mandate of each individual stakeholder is something which assures me that
izaći sa vrlo kvalitetnim,
ne
kratkoročnim, ne brzim, ne lakim, ali rešenjima koje će dati dobre rezultate, je upravo način na koji je postavljen rad te radne grupe i na to da nam nijednom od učesnika,
and none of the stakeholders in this working group, including the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Economy, Ministry of Justice, Chamber of Commerce, where we also have from whom we received useful information for this topic, international financial institutions, primarily IMF. So all these stakeholders are interested, same as international investment companies which have experience or which are creating new experience and are being informed about Serbia. So this caution in our communication with you stems not from our wish to reveal, to hide anything, but we just want to define this in a manner which commits us to implement everything that we committed to. We will not give promises which we will not be able to fulfill. We will not set deadlines which will be delayed later on. Not even for a week. I'm not talking only about the regulations. When we adopted the insurance law, the loan banking resolution, amendments to the loan bank. But as you already see and have seen for yourself, all bylaws, formation of organizational units that need to do with deal with NPLs, all this we have already prepared in the manner and within the deadlines which we promised. So we do not give any easy promises, and this is not a characteristic of our approach as a national bank and one of the participants in the work on resolving the NPLs. So I beg you to understand in this context our reservations in our comments.
Because we have sufficient results of our own, so we do not have to use today's panel to speak about joint results of the whole working group.
Let us go back to NPL. How come they continue to rise in the first quarter of this year, almost by the whole 1 percentage point, what we see from your report for the second quarter? In the same period, there was the decrease in a share of Greek banks to 12.9% in your report. How do you explain this decrease in the share of Greek banks? And thirdly, these AQR tests that you're conducting, how do you expect they will reflect on stability indicators by the end of this year? And fourthly, I would just like to talk about a little more about Swiss franc indexed loans. Why are banks given the possibility to limit the period of offer? Shouldn't this be some permanent offer to clients? I will try, first of all, to respond to your first question, and then we will distribute between ourselves the other questions. We are not hiding. NPLs continue to rise. The reason is their growth and also, to some extent, the lower credit activity. So, in total, all of this has pushed up the share of NPLs, where this growth concentrated in the corporate sector. So, there is a problem, we are not hiding it, we have to tackle it. In the annual financial stability report, we have underlined key determinants of the rise in NPLs. As you already know, this is the equation of two numbers. As the manager of the Financial Stability Department said, one thing is the slow credit activity. So even when the NPLs are not growing, you have the increase in the ratio. But what's most important, the determinant in this period, given the stability of the exchange rate and the drop in the, and not the rise in the interest rate, definitely the key factor was the prolonged recession. When you have problems in addressing the existing stock in terms of different regulatory impediments which do exist and which have been identified in a strategy, you have the inflow of new NPLs while you're not efficient in addressing the existing stock of NPLs, especially in the part of tax regulations, and we're not aware of this until all of us, representatives of different institutions, sat at the same table and discussed between ourselves together with banks. So I would just like to add that this strategy will be extremely important in this respect, that everybody will remove regulatory impediments in their domains in order to tackle better both the existing and potential new NPLs. So this is the first thing. Regarding the decrease in risk-weighted assets, I believe that you heard from the presentation speaking about Greek banks that and I also dwelled a bit in my speech on this. When problems occur in one country or in one banking group which has subsidiaries in other countries, the problems simply spread throughout. This is this expectations channel or psychological channel, as Anna called it. But the point to this whole story is that when you face the drop in deposit, the outflow of deposits, which happened, then banks naturally reduce their risk-weighted assets in order to maintain their capital adequacy above the regulatory minimum. Have I succeeded in answering your question? I just would like to add that we are expecting to have the real picture of NPLs after the completion of special diagnostic studies, which we expected will be finished by end September. We are doing our best, but from objective reasons, we had to prolong the deadline because we had this prolonged deadline of submission of all financial reports of companies and institutions. So in order to avoid doing the same job twice and choose the latest data, we postponed the final analysis of AQR test by end October. But I would also like to say and to assign this growth, according to my own assessment, to a more serious, so to say, analysis of banks in categorization of their loans in their books. And I will also the Greek crisis was not a contributor to this because we reacted to this crisis promptly and preparedly. You always have this moment that the crises are sometimes sudden, but in one part they're expected. So we did have a bit more serious situation in terms of outflow of deposits from Greek banks, but these deposits remained in the system, which is very commendable to us and speaks in favor of this general level of financial stability and trust in the financial system. So we are satisfied, and I can say very openly, in Greek banks, we had around 10% of total savings, and around 10% of these savings temporarily exited the system, which is just in the domain of psychological reactions and some noisy announcements in the media, inability to address the crisis, etc. So ourselves and the banks did not face any particular crisis in this respect, any problem or difficulty in this respect. So maybe this data that you presented was a bit influenced by this, but a more precise analysis of why the percents are at this level, we will be able to give you a more reliable information very soon.
The share of non-performing loans, the share of Swiss franc index loans and non-performing loans in the last quarter, increased from 8.4 to 8.5, and you have to admit that this is not an increase that causes concern. Even though there were many people who advocated for not having new agreements with banks arranged or who wanted the National Bank of Serbia to engage in the marketplace, but we did not respond to these pressures because we are responsible. Why didn't we leave an incessantly present option? Why did we set a deadline? It is not impossible for banks to keep these options, these offers open, even before as they did, even before the National Bank of Serbia announced its recommendations in 2013 and announced its decision adopted in February this year. So commercial banks kept the option of conversion open even before the Swiss franc problem emerged. So this only shows that some banks are very responsible in doing their job, and they do not want their NPLs to increase. They want to remain attractive for this type of retail lending. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you for your interest in what will become a practice of the National Bank of Serbia. We will be happy to answer any of your queries sent by email or telephone. Thank you, everybody.